don't crave what's easy, you crave what you can't touch. Let that sink in. Because the most dangerous addiction isn't a person, it's their energy. That untouchable, unreachable, can't figure it out energy that keeps you up at night wondering why it felt like a dream and why it slipped through your fingers like smoke. You see, folks, people don't get obsessed with what's available. They get obsessed with what disappears too silently, with what they can't pin down, with what they had access to once and now can't find anywhere. That's the power of unreachable energy, and it's about to get snatched away from the ones who never knew how to honor it. Hey, my friends, imagine this. You're standing in the middle of a room glowing like the sun, not bragging, not even trying, just existing, and they're drawn to it like moths to a flame. But here's the twist. They think they can play with that fire without ever getting burned. They touch your light like it's a toy, not realizing that your glow wasn't a free-for-all. It was sacred. And when you finally pull back, when you step out of reach, suddenly they're not interested in all the other lights. They want yours, but it's too late. You've become something they can no longer access. And that, my friends, is where the magic starts. You see, the lie they sold you is that to be loved, you have to be available, always there, always showing up, always texting first. But the truth is, the more they can reach you, the more they take you for granted. We are wired to chase what eludes us. The treasure buried beneath the mountain is always more valued than the one lying in the street. So if you're the treasure, why are you letting yourself be handled like spare change? Let's break something right now. Being distant isn't being mean. Being unavailable doesn't make you cold. It makes you rare. And rare things aren't passed around. They're protected. You don't see diamonds thrown across parking lots, right? You see them locked behind glass, guarded, admired, earned. So why are you giving your energy like it's candy at a parade? Let them reach for it. Let them wonder. Let them miss what they once had front row access to. Here's the wild part. Once you stop giving, they start noticing. Once you detach, they start craving. Not because they suddenly respect you, but because now they realize they can't control you. And that lack of control, that's where the obsession begins. That's when the chaser becomes them. And you become a ghost they can't stop dreaming about. So don't beg. Don't over-explain. Don't ask them to understand your worth. Just rise, quietly, powerfully. And when they come looking, let them find a closed door they thought would always stay open. Because you, my friend, are not replaceable. You are not common. You are not available to people who only want you when it's convenient. So drop this in the comments right now. I am rare energy. Say it like a promise to yourself. Say it for every time you gave too much and got crumbs in return. Press that like button if this hit your chest. Subscribe if you're ready to stop chasing and start becoming the energy they never recover from. And stay with me, because what's coming next is how to become the flame they regret touching and the storm they'll never stop chasing. Number 1, you were always the flame, but you were too close to burn. They only realize how warm you were when they start to freeze without you. Let that sit with you, because some of you were never the problem. You were the fire, the warmth, the glow. But you were too close, too accessible, too emotionally available, and they forgot fire burns. They took your presence as permission. They took your kindness as a guarantee. And now that you've stepped back, now that you've become unreachable, they're starting to feel a chill in their soul they can't explain. That's the power you never knew you had. Imagine this, my friend. You're standing in front of someone holding a lit candle, not a flame that's out of control, but one that dances quietly, giving off light, peace, safety, and they blow it out, just like that. No hesitation. They say it's too much, too intense, too clingy. And you? You stare in disbelief. You question your own warmth. You wonder if maybe you were too soft, too loyal, too glowing. But here's the truth. They were never uncomfortable with your fire. They were just unworthy of it. And now? Now they're sitting in the dark, wishing they had just protected the flame instead of blowing it out. And that's when the questions come up. You know the ones. Why do they only care when I pull away? Why do they come back just when I finally start to heal? Why didn't they appreciate me when I was all in? Because they weren't looking for warmth. They were looking for control. And your fire? It was free. It couldn't be owned. It couldn't be dimmed. You loved without conditions, and that kind of energy scares people who haven't learned how to hold it. Let's break the illusion right now. You didn't get rejected because you were too much. You were rejected because you were too real, and people who live in shadows will always fear the light, especially when that light shows them their own flaws, their emotional immaturity, their lack of depth. You weren't intense. You were illuminating. And they weren't ready to be seen. They couldn't handle your consistency because they're used to chaos. They couldn't handle your clarity because they live in confusion. They couldn't handle your depth because they're shallow swimmers who panic in still water. And so, instead of rising to meet you, they walked away. But here's the thing they never expected. You didn't chase. You didn't beg. You just stopped showing up. And when you did, something wild happened. Suddenly, their memory became haunted by the things they said were too much. Your voice in the morning, your check-in texts, your laugh, your soft presence that wrapped around them like emotional oxygen. They didn't realize they were breathing through your energy until you stopped being the air they could inhale without gratitude. Now they want it back. But the air is gone, the warmth is gone. And you're glowing, but from a distance. And yes, it's hard. I know it is. It's hard to be the one who gave everything and got the bare minimum in return. It's hard to detach from someone you gave your soul to. It's hard to walk away when all you wanted was for them to just see you, to choose you, to show up. But what you wanted wasn't wrong. You were just offering it to someone who couldn't hold it. And maybe, deep down, you kept hoping if you gave a little more, loved a little deeper, they'd finally open their eyes. But here's the truth that sets you free. If someone can look you in the eyes, feel your love, know your loyalty, and still walk away, they're not confused, they're just incapable. And your heart deserves more than someone who treats it like a temporary emotion. So let this be the moment you stop shrinking, stop dimming, stop handing out pieces of yourself to people who only show up with empty hands. You are not hard to love. You are hard to forget. And that's the difference. They didn't walk away because you weren't enough. They walked away because they couldn't match your energy. They couldn't hold the fire, so they blamed the flame. But not anymore. Not after you've risen into your power. Not after you've seen what happens when you stop being the fire for them and start being the fire for you. You don't need to prove anything anymore. Your silence already did the talking. Your distance already rewrote the story. Now, when they think of you, it's not a memory. It's a scar, a reminder of the warmth they dismissed, a glow they can't recreate, a light that won't ever shine for them again. And you are not angry. You are just unreachable. And that is the most addictive energy in the world. So say this out loud. Say it in the comments. Say it for yourself, for your past, for every version of you that kept giving. I was the fire. They couldn't hold me. Let the world see it. Let the universe feel it. Show yourself what you were always afraid to believe. You were never too much. You were the right energy. They just weren't ready. And stay with me, because what's coming next is how your distance becomes the addiction they can't explain and the obsession they'll never recover from. Number 2, the power of becoming emotionally unavailable. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. There's a kind of power people don't talk about. The kind that doesn't scream, doesn't chase, doesn't explain. The kind that just disappears. Emotionally, energetically, spiritually. You don't leave with a bang, you just stop being available, and that silence, that absence, it's deafening to the ones who once depended on your light to feel alive. You see, folks, emotional unavailability isn't weakness. It's not coldness, it's clarity. Because you tried, you gave, you overextended your soul trying to be enough for someone who couldn't even meet you halfway. You were emotionally naked in front of someone who wore armor. You were trying to build connection with someone who only understood escape. And now you're done explaining why your heart deserves more than confusion wrapped in sweet words. Let's be honest. They didn't think you'd leave. Not really. They thought you'd always be there, waiting, hoping, loving without boundaries, because you always were. You answered their calls even after they disappeared for days. You stayed soft even when they got distant. You made excuses for them, told yourself maybe they're just going through something, but the truth is they were going through other options. They were playing with the idea of you like a toy they assumed would be on the shelf forever. And now that shelf is empty, the toy is gone, and they don't even know how to ask for it back. Because now you're emotionally unavailable, and nothing drives the ego crazier than realizing the person who once lit up when they texted doesn't flinch anymore, that the eyes that once softened now stare through them like they're invisible, that the energy that once comforted them in silence is just silence now, and not the warm kind, the kind that echoes, the kind that haunts. You didn't do it to punish them. You did it to protect yourself, because giving your soul to someone who only wanted your body, your attention, or your validation, it started to hurt. You saw how one-sided the emotional labor became. You were the glue, the one who apologized first, the one who forgave faster than you healed, the one who tried to fix a broken connection while they sat back and watched you bleed for it. And still, they never got it, but they will now. Because when someone who once overflowed with love becomes quiet, really quiet, it shakes something inside the one who took that love for granted. They start looking around like they lost something valuable, but it's not something, it's someone. They thought your feelings were a faucet they could turn off and on whenever it suited them, but now you've turned off the water, and they're thirsty in a desert they created. This isn't bitterness. This is your awakening. You're not running away. You're just done trying to be heard by someone who never listened. Done being emotionally naked around someone who only ever wanted to stay clothed. Done explaining why your love has value to someone who treated it like background noise. Now you're emotionally unavailable, not because you don't feel, but because you feel too deeply to let yourself be mishandled again. That's what people don't get about detachment. It's not indifference, it's sacredness. It's realizing not everyone deserves to know the depths of your heart. Not everyone gets to drink from your emotional well and then complain about the taste. And the hardest part? That shift isn't loud. You don't announce it. You don't throw a tantrum. You don't send a final text explaining how they messed up. You just stop, slowly, quietly, powerfully. You stop initiating. You stop waiting. You stop caring if they notice, because your peace matters more than their attention. And while they may not say it, oh, they feel it. Trust me, they feel it. They're checking their phone and seeing no messages. They're posting stories just to see if you'll react. They're laughing in public and dying in private. Because when you were emotionally available, you made them feel seen, and now that you're not, they're invisible to the only eyes that ever really looked at them. Let them feel that, because this is your era of emotional boundaries. This is where you stop being everyone's emotional sponge. This is where you stop breaking your own heart just to prove it's real. From now on, your energy is earned. Your heart is earned. Your attention is earned. Say this out loud. Say it in the comments. Say it to yourself in the mirror if you have to. I am no longer emotionally available to confusion. Let them feel the distance. Let them spiral. Let them wonder, not because you want revenge, but because you've finally decided that not everyone deserves to reach you. And stay with me, because next, we're going deeper into what happens when your silence becomes their obsession, and your distance becomes the mirror they can't stop staring into. Number 3, they chase what they can't understand. Nothing drives them crazier than a calm they can't read. Let's talk about it. Because right now, some of you are being chased by the same people who once ignored your presence like it meant nothing. Funny how the game flips, huh? One moment, you're too much, too emotional, too available. And the next, your silence is echoing in their mind like a song they can't get out of their head. Why? Because people don't chase clarity, they chase confusion, they chase mystery. And the second you became unreadable, the second you stopped explaining and started existing, they started craving you in ways even they can't understand. Let's break this down. When you were available, predictable, present, they felt powerful. They knew you'd reply. They knew you'd answer the late-night call. They knew you'd come back no matter how they treated you. But now you're not angry. You're just quiet. You're not explaining anymore. You're unavailable. And that's messing with their mind more than any dramatic exit ever could. Imagine this. You're a puzzle, and for the longest time, you handed them every piece. You spelled it out. You loved loudly. You showed up even when they didn't deserve it. You wore your heart on your sleeve and thought it would make them stay. But it didn't, because people don't value what's always explained. They value what they have to figure out. And now that you've stopped giving away the map, they're walking in circles trying to find a version of you they no longer have access to. And now they're confused. Now they're restless. Now they're watching your stories, reading old texts, replaying conversations in their head, asking themselves, why did they change? Did I mess this up? Are they over me? Did they move on? Who are they becoming without me? They don't chase you because they've changed. They chase you because now you've changed. They can't read you. They can't access the same warmth they used to take for granted. You don't double text. You don't reach out. You don't ask what's wrong. You've become the thing their ego wasn't prepared for, a person they can't predict. You see, the human brain is wired for patterns. We want to know what's coming next. We want to believe we're in control. So when someone suddenly detaches, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, it breaks the rhythm, it shatters the pattern, and the mind goes into overdrive, trying to solve what it can no longer control. That's why they're chasing you. Not because they've grown, but because your silence broke the script they wrote for you. And let's be real, my friend. You weren't too much. You were just too honest for someone who wasn't ready to face themselves. You gave them light in a season they wanted to stay blind. And now that you've pulled back, now that you've leveled up emotionally, they can't stand the distance, not because they love you, but because they lost the access that made them feel in control. You became the mystery, and nothing is more addictive than a mystery wrapped in peace. Because it doesn't look like revenge, it doesn't look like drama, it looks like silence, it looks like you smiling without them, healing without closure, glowing without an audience. And that, my friends, is what drives them mad. They thought you'd always be readable, but now you're a page they can't turn, and every version of you that used to show up with a paragraph and a heart wide open, gone, you've gone inward. And from the outside, it looks like peace. But to them, it's the scariest thing they've ever seen. Because what they don't understand, they can't manipulate. What they can't predict, they can't control. And what they can't figure out, they chase. It's human nature. So let them run. Let them chase a version of you that no longer exists. Let them spin their wheels, trying to understand why your energy suddenly became so protected, so rare, so sacred. Because you didn't go cold, you went unreadable, you didn't stop caring, you stopped performing, you stopped handing over your soul to people who only knew how to play games with it, and the ones who used to roll their eyes at your presence. Now they're studying your silence like it's a language they forgot how to speak. They don't miss the old you. They miss the control they had over you, the easy access, the emotional safety net. But guess what? That version of you, it's gone, evolved, rewritten. So say this right now. Say it in the comments. Say it for your soul. Say it like a boundary. I am no longer easy to read. You are the enigma now, the calm chaos, the still flame that burns everything it touches. You are unreachable, not because you're angry, but because you've mastered the power of emotional protection. And stay with me, because next, we're diving into how your distance doesn't just confuse them, it feeds their obsession. And once that happens, oh, they'll never be the same again. Number 4, your distance feeds their obsession. The less of you they get, the more they crave the version of you they ignored. Let's cut through the illusion. When you were showing up, fully, loudly, beautifully, they barely blinked. You sent the good morning texts, checked on them when their silence felt off, loved them without needing a reason. You offered emotional clarity in a world that thrives on confusion. And what did they do? They got comfortable. They got entitled. They stopped seeing you. They forgot that energy like yours doesn't knock twice. But then something shifted. You stopped texting first. You stopped overthinking your silence. You stopped offering explanations for emotions they never took the time to understand. And just like that, your absence became their obsession, not because they suddenly grew up, not because they finally saw your worth, but because humans are wired to want what they can't have. And now, you're not available. You're not explaining. You're not breaking yourself just to be understood. You became a closed door they assumed would always stay open, and it's messing with their head. Imagine it like this. They walked into a room where the music was always playing, your energy. It was soft, warm, familiar. And then, one day, without a warning, the music stopped. The lights dimmed. The warmth disappeared. And now, all they can hear is silence, the kind that rings in your ears, the kind that makes you question everything you took for granted. That's what your distance has done. It turned your presence into a memory they can't mute, and now they're spiraling, quietly, silently, behind the curated smiles and meaningless distractions. They're asking questions their pride won't let them say out loud. Did I lose them? Why does it feel so empty now? Are they really done? They'll never admit it to anyone. But every time their phone lights up and it's not you, something inside them tightens. Every time they see your name, without the certainty of a response, there's a twist in their gut. Every time they go to sleep, hoping maybe you'll reach out, and nothing happens. That's when it hits. You're not chasing, you're not explaining, you're not accessible. And that right there is the beginning of their obsession. They thought you'd always be there, didn't they? They thought no matter how cold they acted, how distant they became, how inconsistent their effort was, you'd always come back. But now, you've rewritten the story. And the part that terrifies them most? They don't know this version of you, the one that doesn't reach, the one that doesn't crack, the one that doesn't need to be heard to know their worth. You became unreachable. And now they're addicted to the mystery. That's what people never tell you. The moment you go silent, you become a mirror they can't look away from. Your distance reflects everything they lost, everything they dismissed, everything they thought would wait forever. But your energy is not a waiting room. Your love is not an unlimited trial. And your presence, it was a privilege, not a promise. Now they're scrolling, replaying, over-analyzing every message you ever sent, reading between the lines for clues you're not even giving anymore, zooming into your photos hoping to see sadness in your eyes, but it's not there. because the storm passed, and you became the calm after. And that calm, it scares them more than any argument ever could. Because you're not mad, you're detached, you're not shouting, you're still. And people don't obsess over rage, they obsess over silence. They obsess over the stillness they once drowned in, because now that stillness feels like a locked room they lost the key to. Here's the part that stings the most for them. They don't even know what they're chasing anymore, because the version of you they're addicted to doesn't exist. You outgrew that version while they were too busy playing games. Let them chase. Let them wonder. Let them scroll endlessly through a highlight reel that no longer includes them. Let them sit in their confusion, because you were never meant to be figured out by someone who didn't even try to understand you in the first place. You are not a puzzle. You are not a second chance. You are the lesson they didn't study for, and now they're failing the test. Say this right now in the comments. Say it with truth. Say it like your new standard. My distance is discipline. You're not being cold. You're being clear. You're not being cruel. You're being sacred. You're not playing hard to get. You're just no longer playing. And stay with me, because next we're going even deeper into how sacred energy doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't explain. It just becomes the standard no one else can live up to. Number 5, unavailable doesn't mean cold. It means sacred. They said you changed, but the truth is, you just stopped giving energy to what drained you. Let's make something clear. Just because you're quiet now doesn't mean you're heartless. Just because you stopped texting, stopped checking in, stopped being the one who always tries, doesn't mean you're cold. It means you're sacred now. You've finally realized that your energy is not a community pool, it's a temple. And not everyone gets to walk barefoot through your soul acting like it's free territory. You weren't born to be an emotional vending machine. You were born to radiate. But the problem is, when you give that light freely to people who never respect it, they start believing the light is theirs to control, that your warmth is a tap they can turn on and off at will. And when you finally shut it off, when you finally say no more, they call you distant, cold, unfeeling. But the truth? You're not cold. You're done being used. There's a difference between being unavailable and being unkind. You're still kind, still full of love, still glowing with softness. You've just stopped handing out your heart like it's a coupon in a grocery store. You've stopped entertaining energy that only shows up when it's convenient. And for some people, people who only valued your presence when it was easy to access, that shift feels like cruelty. But it's not. It's clarity. Imagine it like this, my friend. You're a garden, full of color, life, beauty. But certain people walked through your garden with muddy boots. They didn't appreciate the flowers. They didn't water anything. They just trampled, took pictures, and left footprints. And when you finally put up a fence, not to keep the world out, but to protect your growth, they said you were guarded, that you changed. But all you really did was stop allowing chaos to roam freely through what you've worked so hard to heal. Let that sink in. You didn't go cold. You got sacred. You started choosing your peace over their drama, your clarity over their mixed signals, your growth over their stagnation. You stopped opening your door to people who knocked only when they were lonely, not when they wanted to build. And yeah, some people don't know how to handle that, because they were never taught to earn access to someone's soul. They were never shown that not every good person stays when they're taken for granted. They thought you were the safe bet, the fallback plan, the forever open hand. But now that you've become unavailable, not out of revenge, but out of self-respect, they're shaken. Because what's sacred can't be summoned. What's sacred can't be played with. What's sacred doesn't chase. You're not punishing anyone by pulling back. You're protecting yourself. And that's something to be proud of, not ashamed of. You see, being emotionally available to everyone is not kindness, it's self-betrayal. It's bleeding out your light just to make other people feel warm, even when they won't offer you a match in return. You're not mean for going silent. You're not evil for walking away. You're just done explaining why your soul is not a playground. And here's the part that flips the whole script. People respect what they can't touch. The second you become sacred, they start treating you like treasure. Not because they finally love you right, but because now they realize they never had the right to handle you so casually. Now they're pacing, now they're thinking, now they're whispering to their friends that you've changed. But you didn't change, you just woke up. You saw that constantly being available to people who only want fragments of you is a fast way to lose yourself. And you're not about to lose yourself ever again. Not for love, not for attention, not for closure. You're not rejecting them. You're reclaiming you. So let them call it distance. Let them call it cold. Let them misunderstand it if they must. Because at the end of the day, you don't owe anyone access to your energy simply because they used to have it. They'll realize, too late, that your warmth wasn't weakness, it was generosity, it was grace, and it won't be extended again without reverence. Say this out loud. Say it in the comments. Say it like a line drawn in the sand of your soul. My energy is sacred, not rare, sacred, not cold, protected, not gone, evolved. And stay with me, because what's coming next is going to reveal how your sacred glow doesn't disappear. It becomes the haunting memory they can never replace. Number 6. You are not missing. You are missed. They'll swear you disappeared, but the truth is they stopped looking while you were right there. This is for the ones who feel invisible after giving everything, for the souls who loved loudly but were met with silence. Let's get something straight. You didn't vanish. You didn't ghost. You didn't run. You just stopped pouring yourself into a cup that never refilled yours. You stopped overreaching. You stopped breaking your own heart trying to fix someone else's. You're not missing, my friend. You're missed. And there's a difference. You were there, fully, softly, loudly, in all the ways that mattered. They just didn't know how to recognize presence that wasn't desperate. They mistook your consistency for boredom, your loyalty for neediness, your love for availability. So they wandered, they played, they distanced themselves, they flirted with chaos while you were standing in front of them, holding peace like a sacred offering. And now that you're gone, now that your energy no longer surrounds them, now they're calling it disappearance, when really it was just the end of your tolerance. Because you didn't leave suddenly. You left slowly, bit by bit. You stopped chasing conversations. You stopped initiating plans. You stopped offering reassurances that were never reciprocated. You pulled back, not to manipulate, but because your spirit was exhausted. Because you were tired of trying to feel seen by someone whose eyes were only open when it benefited them. They don't feel your absence because you vanished. They feel it because your presence used to heal them, and now it doesn't. They feel it when they laugh, and it doesn't echo the way it did when you laughed with them. They feel it when they hear a song that used to make you smile and realize they no longer know what makes you smile. They feel it in the silence, the kind you used to fill, the kind that now lingers and lingers. And let's be honest, some of you are still wondering if maybe you walked away too soon. Maybe you should have tried one more time. Maybe they didn't know what they were doing. But deep down, you know. You know how many times you gave, how many times you forgave, how many times you swallowed your pain just to keep the connection alive. You know the difference between someone who's trying and someone who's just trying to keep you around. They didn't forget you. They just assumed you'd never leave. They didn't stop caring. They just cared in a way that always put themselves first. They didn't move on. They moved around, and now they're circling back. Not because they've changed, but because your silence disrupted their ego's illusion of control. Because when someone has access to your soul for too long without having to earn it, they forget it's a gift. And when that access is gone, they confuse it for loss. But it's not just a loss, it's a spiritual shift. You're no longer emotionally available to confusion. You're no longer feeding what starves you in return. You're no longer explaining your worth to people who heard your heart and still shrugged. Let them say you disappeared. Let them call you distant. Let them tell their friends you went quiet for no reason. They'll never say, I ignored them when they needed me. They'll never admit, I saw their value but kept them waiting. They'll never confess, they were right there and I didn't choose them. But they know. In the spaces between their distractions, in the cracks of their casual days, in the moments when their phone lights up and it's still not you, they feel it. You're not missing. You're just no longer performing. You're not lost. You just stopped being found by people who weren't really looking. You're not invisible. You just stopped shining for people who wore sunglasses to your light. And here's the part that burns. They don't miss you entirely. They miss who they were when they had your energy, because you made them feel seen, you made them feel whole, you made them feel real. And now, without your reflection to hide behind, they're facing themselves. And it's not pretty. You were the calm in their chaos, the grace in their storm. And now, they're chasing highs that don't hit the same, talking to people who don't laugh the way you did, sitting in rooms that feel colder than they used to, not because the room changed, but because you're not in it anymore. So let them miss you. Let them sit in the space your presence used to soften. Let them scroll through old messages. Let them read your name and feel the weight of every ignored effort you once gave freely. Because your silence isn't empty. It's sacred. It's your soul's way of healing. It's your spirit reclaiming itself. Say this in the comments right now. I was never missing. I just stopped showing up where I wasn't valued. Say it with pride. Say it with peace. Say it for the version of you that gave too much and never asked for enough. And stay with me, because what comes next is what happens when the thing they took for granted becomes the one thing they can never replace. Number 7, let them crave what they'll never touch again. They didn't lose you. They let go of something their soul would beg for later. There comes a quiet moment in your life when you stop reaching, not out of rage, not to prove anything, but because something in you finally understands that your energy is not free, that your heart is not a revolving door, that your soul is not a guest house for temporary visitors. And that moment, when you choose yourself, is the exact moment they start craving you in ways they can't explain. But here's the hard truth. They don't crave you because they've grown. They crave you because you became untouchable. When you were available, they shrugged. When you were open, they hesitated. When you were consistent, they pulled away. But now that you've gone quiet, now that your glow is no longer something they can bask in on demand, they're pacing, they're scrolling, they're restless, not for you, but for the access they used to have to you, because they didn't want you, they wanted your energy. And now it's gone. You didn't disappear. You just evolved beyond their reach. You stopped offering soft landings to people who never learned how to catch you. You stopped softening your tone so they wouldn't feel threatened by your depth. You stopped reaching into the fire for someone who never once met you halfway. And now, they feel the absence, not because they finally see your worth, but because they finally feel the weight of your silence. The truth is, they're not chasing love, they're chasing certainty. They're chasing the version of you that loved without limits, gave without boundaries, forgave without question. But that version of you, they no longer exists. That version of you was born in hope and raised in heartbreak, and they died the day you realized your glow was being taken for granted. What rose in her place is someone untouchable, unreadable, unstoppable. And let them try to recreate it. Let them chase half-hearted connections and empty laughs. Let them sit across the table from someone new and compare everything to you. They will. They'll look for your warmth in a colder body. They'll search for your laughter in a quieter soul. They'll try to replace your energy with attention. But nothing will ever land the same, because they didn't just lose a person. They lost presence. They lost peace. They lost the one who would have walked through fire if only they had asked. Let them miss it. Let them ache for it. Let them sit in their confusion. Because what they really lost wasn't just your love. It was the privilege of proximity. They thought you'd always be there, waiting behind the next door, answering the next message. But the next message won't come. The door is closed. Not out of spite, but out of wisdom. You've seen what happens when you give and give and give. You've seen what it costs to beg to be seen. And now your silence is holy. Your distance is your protection. Your boundaries are your revolution. You no longer play the role of the one who waits. You've become the one who walks, silently, gracefully, permanently. So don't explain your absence. Don't soften your strength. Don't offer closure to someone who had every chance and still chose comfort over connection. Let them replay the last time they saw you smile. Let them reread the texts they never answered. Let them scroll through your glow like a movie they never appreciated until the credits rolled. Because they don't want to move on. They want to rewind. But that version of you, they doesn't live here anymore. And the most beautiful part? You're not angry. You're not bitter. You're not broken. You're just unreachable, not emotionally, spiritually, energetically. You've risen to a frequency they can no longer access, and that is what they'll crave forever. Not because you're gone, but because you're glowing without them. And they know deep down they'll never get that chance again. Say this in the comments right now. I am untouchable to those who once overlooked me. Say it for every version of yourself that waited too long, hoped too hard, gave too much. Say it as a declaration to the universe that your energy is no longer available to those who didn't honor it when it was free. Because this is the end of chasing, the end of explaining, the end of performing softness for people who only knew how to consume. This is your glow-up in silence, your power in peace, your revenge in detachment. Let them crave what they'll never touch again. And if this spoke to your spirit, if your chest felt it before your mind did, then know this isn't the end of you. It's the beginning of your most sacred era. Your energy is no longer a question mark in someone else's life. You are the bold period at the end of a chapter they will never rewrite. Let them remember, let them crave, let them regret. Because now, my friend, you are unreachable.